Hey everyone, today I'm going to be showing you some of my animals that I have here. This one here is a Minkley's cichlid, named Professor Wahoo. Now first, you might be saying this tank is really small, and I know that. This is just temporarily in here. This is a 10-gallon tank. It's going to be fine for the next week or two while I get some things sorted out. The reason I haven't been around in the past 2 weeks uploading a lot is because recently my father passed away and I had to take on a bunch of animals he had there because I had the option of taking them or surrendering the animals. So I decided to keep them all, so they're in these containers here temporarily. This is a 10-gallon tank. When we got this one from the pet store, somebody actually surrendered it because they said it was super mean. It was like half the size. We've owned this one for about 10 years. He got this for me as a gift when I was like, gotta say, 9 or 10. So with this fish is probably at least 12 years old plus. This one can live to be over 20. And this fish is very mean. Because if I come over here, and this tank here is on the floor because this is all I really had around. This is a 30 tall with two of these giant Plecos. Originally, the Minkley cichlid was in this 30 with them, which is, I guess, this is an appropriate size tank for them, because this fish here is 14 inches. If you spread it out, and that one there is about the same size. They've been in here for about 4 days. I put a cucumber in there. They haven't even nibbled on it. Plecos love cucumber, or at least the others I have. So I'm worried about them eating. So I put a bunch of flake food in there. I sink it so they can eat it out of the gravel, because these aren't the kind of fish that usually go up unless they're starving. And I also did some water tests on this. Their water is fine. That heater is the only one I had around. It's keeping this at a decent temperature. It's being overworked. That light will not shut off on it. It's been running constantly. That's only a 100-watt heater, I think. But anyways, I went and bought a 500-watt one, which can actually heat up to a 100-gallon aquarium. Overkill is a good thing in this case, because the heater will turn on for a few minutes and then it'll shut off. It'll be off most of the time. Put my hand in the water here, and it's like lukewarm. That's fine. I imagine it's in the 60s, lower 70s, which is fine for them. But that heater's being stressed. I have the water level low until I get another air line over here. This is putting air into the water, and it's also helping to remove pneumonia. Come over here, I just did all the water testing for these. This is for this tank here. Has no pneumonia, because this is established. It has a bacteria cycle and everything. It has the plants removing it. Oh, there we go. There's the frog. Frog loves these plants. Okay, these two came from the Minkley cichlid tank. Now the pneumonia in there is super high because it's a newer tank. It's around 2, so I'm going to be doing a water change on this one. I'm also going to drop the water level down a little bit so that the waterfall can remove it, because both of those tanks are the same. This is the result from the Plecos. It's because of the waterfall. That's why the pneumonia is up in this one, so I'm going to take care of that. I always use this little cup so I can do these. You never put these into the water because the chemicals coming off them will harm the fish, and I always wipe down the counter when I'm done with all that stuff. But some tests you can't get like these. Certain ones I do, like sulfate. Ammonia isn't included in those. Here's some of the baby snails. Had them for a while. You see all the little holes they made all over that cucumber as they eat it. They're getting pretty big. The parents I'm isolating because I know one of them is still having issues. Let's see in here. If I go around, I'll be able to show the Pleco in this tank. So this one, I separated this one from those other two because this one was biting them. I noticed the fins were all torn. Even in that 30, they were having issues because they were too close. This fish has to be separated. Okay, back to when we first got this one. This was in a 55-gallon community tank originally with about 20 other cichlids. There was a parrotfish in there, a bunch of foil barbs, And they lived in there for about 5 years, not a single issue. But one day, this Professor Wahoo got in its head, I'm going to go and kill everything in that tank. Everything in that tank was killed, except I think there was a Jack Dempsey that survived, and that lived a few more years. But the Placos usually defend themselves against this because these are cichlids. They have barbs. If you stick your hand in there and try to pick up one of those Placos, they'll try to jab you. This tank is nice and warm. That's like 85 in there for that fish. That fish is doing just fine for now. I'm going to try to get it another 30 tall when I go to the pet store. I'm just looking for the right price. It's going to end up costing me like 40 bucks for one of them. Over here is a snake that I took. The snake was originally in a 55. I couldn't take the 55. I had to downgrade it. This is a 20 long. That's fine because I'll be letting the snake out a lot. The snake is probably 4 feet spread out, pretty skinny. It's a corn snake. I just fed it 2 mice today that I bought at the pet store. I don't feed live mice. I buy them frozen and defrost them. Still gotta get a lot of things with these animals sorted out, so let me just show the snake. It's a nice snake. If you see the 2 lumps on there, those would be the mice. Snake really likes this cave. Blackjack is not the name of the snake, that's the name of a tarantula, which I gave away to one of my friends to take care of it. That tarantula is going to have a good life. But, you know, a tarantula doesn't move around a lot. My father originally kept it in a 20. It just sat around. It really didn't move a lot. It ate a lot of the cricket food in there. It didn't really like crickets much. It mostly ate the jelly food. It would suck the moisture out of them. Yeah, but Blackjack was downgraded to a 5-gallon since it didn't move around for a few years. And now my friend is going to put it into a, I think, a 200-gallon tank by itself. It's gigantic. But it's like there's a bunch of plants in there too. It's a dry environment with like, yeah, there's a few plants in there, but it's not humid or anything. It's good for a spider. Now in here I have 2 heat mats. The air temperature here in the basement's around 60. Too cold for a snake, but we have heat mat under each cave in there. I'm going to get this thing working. I tried putting a 100-watt bulb in there, but I don't know if I'm going to trust this. I'm going to get an actual heat lamp where this part's ceramic. This is for drying paint. I originally had an LED in there. This is for the bird's cage. I just wanted to add extra heat in there, but that snake would be fine for now. My ultraviolet lights did pretty well in here. This thing is doing awesome. This is a citronella plant. That keeps all the little flies and insects away from the other things, but these, even it being indoors, it only extended their growing life like 3 months because, you know, see, they're creating seeds, then they're just going to die out. Bamboo is still alive in there. Now this thing here is a battery backup. Now you see these plugs here for battery backup. They're all surge protected. I have these in this side, so if the power goes out, everything's dead. The reason I do that, because I don't want the heating elements in the aquariums to just turn on immediately, because the house is still warm. I want to be able to move them over here and turn them on like 2 days into the power outage when they actually need the heat. Well, if the power was to go out, the snake, I'd give it warm water inside of a bottle, you know, so it could wrap up around it. That's how I'd usually treat a snake. I'd float hot water bottles in there, snake warm water, so it doesn't burn itself. You could put boiling water inside of plastic bottles and stick them in these and float them around. But actually, like when I was setting these up, I was kind of lazy because the water coming out of the tap was, you know, freezing. You could tell it was probably in the 40s because it's middle of winter, and I wanted to get them in here immediately. So carefully with a teapot, I poured boiling water, spread it around in there. That's okay to do, as long as you don't get it near the glass, because you will crack it instantly. I've done that before. Not by pouring water in there. I lowered the water level once in one of the giant lights on the outside, because they used to have lights that go in the back. It shines through the water. They don't make them anymore. Well, they make them LED now, so that doesn't apply anymore. But anyways, the big 55s, I don't have the space for those. I couldn't take those ones, and all them other tanks he had there were kind of crap. That one's on the floor. It's supposed to be up on that stand there, but it was actually a slow leak. The corner of that stand had mold all over it. It was leaking enough for mold to grow, but not enough for a puddle. So that's going to stay up there. I'm going to replace that cage and this, so I have to go out and buy probably two 30-gallon tanks. And I bought the bigger heater. I also bought a bunch of thermometers, one for each one of these, so I can keep a track on that. But I was able to get a lot of things there. He has like a stack of probably 20 aquariums because he used to work in a bunch of pet stores, and he was also an animal doctor, so he had access to a bunch of the animal medications in case anything got sick. I was unable to take those there also because, like, I've been seeing him, but I just didn't want to believe what was happening with him. He eventually died from a cancer, but he's been lying to me for like 2 years because he didn't want me to worry. He said it was Lyme disease. That's why he was losing weight and all that. So that was a big surprise to me. I didn't even know he had the cancer up until 6 hours before it died. I was alerted of that. But not even a day after he was gone, I was told that I had to go to his house since he didn't actually own it. His mother told me, "You have 2 days to get everything out of that house." So she said I could take what was mine, which is like half of the stuff in there, but how am I going to prove that kind of stuff? So I lost like half of my stuff because it won't fit here where I live now. And the rest of the stuff they're going to throw out. I had no choice about that. They said if I wanted his stuff, I had to pay $5,000. And even if I did pay the $5,000, what am I going to do with the stuff? They wanted to sell that house immediately. It's like they were waiting for him to be gone because there was like no emotion or anything. That was the day after, so that's what's been going on. Now I have these animals here. I want to take good care of them. They're temporarily in small tanks. There's the bird in here. Bird's cage is kind of dark because again I had to take the light out of here. I'm going to put that light back since I discovered I can't use that one for the snake. I can just use that with LED bulbs which don't get hot. I also have some space heaters, so this is just a basement where I keep all this stuff. And this corner of the basement gets warm, but occasionally I want to spread it around, so I rigged this thing up. I got that from our old furnace when it was replaced. I had the furnace guys leave the entire machine here. This is from the 50s. I made some videos of myself fixing that thing up. It needed a new belt, it needed a paint job, it needed to be lubricated. That's obviously not the original motor. See on the back here? It's from 54. I spray painted that over it. It used to say 54, but I wanted to make it nicer. So, but this is really powerful. Just want to make sure you don't get your hand stuck in that, but that thing works awesome. That thing pumps so much air. I'm always paranoid about this kind of stuff too, because I'm running space heaters. I always feel them. That's a 20 amp. It can handle a few aquariums in this heater. I went to school for many years for electricity, so I know a lot about how not to overload stuff. There's the plug over there. You can even see that. See, the Plecos have that nice cave. Plecos are nocturnal, that's why I don't have a light over here. They don't need a light, they like the dark. Although a light would be good for algae, could grow in there. I gotta figure out what's up with them. I gotta try giving them some iceberg, no, what is this stuff? Romaine lettuce. Iceberg is garbage, that won't give them any nutrition. I'm gonna buy them some algae wafers. But I don't even know what they'll eat. I've never seen those eat. This one here is picky too. This one won't eat. You see the food up there? This one, I put the food in there, it disappears in the morning, so it only eats in the dark or something, this fish. Yeah, you can even see its teeth in there. This one used to freak out if you put, a Furby, put the Furby in front of the cage, and it starts moving, and this thing would bite at the glass. This is one aggressive fish. And And for what I can tell, you don't see these ones very often. And you can tell this one's angry. Look at that. See that big pile there? This was flat. This thing's been digging. This would actually what it did in the pet store years ago when it was angry. It'd be picking up rocks in its mouth and shooting them over, making big hills. Because, you know, it's bored in there. It's not a big tank. I'm going to drop this down a little bit so we get a waterfall. That'll remove all the ammonia in there because we don't have a bacteria cycle. These are recently set up. After a week, the bacteria, pneumonia, all the bad stuff evens out. Might have to put something heavy on top of here because this fish in the past has rammed the top of the cages before. I'm going to get this one a 20-gallon. This filter here is like the only one I've ever had of this. I like that filter because you see the impeller is underwater. It's not in the back like a traditional one, so it actually primes itself. Because you see the minimum water level is right there, so I can get it down quite a bit. I guess my leech should probably be in the basement because leeches like the colder stuff. You know, aquariums you'd usually keep upstairs, but because it's warm and you wouldn't have to heat them. But I keep them downstairs because it makes a mess sometimes when you're doing maintenance on them. It doesn't matter if the floor down here gets wet. I also like to keep a lot of the electrical off the ground because, you know, if one of them broke, at least it wouldn't be submerged. I got to get some more bricks because I have a lot more electrical stuff down here now. So a lot of this is wires going back and forth to timers and stuff. And most of it's just low voltage stuff. Now my plan, this is actually on a file cabinet here. So I'm planning on leaning this thing over on its side up against that wall. That's where my 20 will go when I get it. Preferably a 30 tall if I can get one at a good price. See, there's not much in here. This is just fish tank stuff. So this could go on its side. This isn't like a regular file cabinet. This thing is durable because it's like 50 years old. They built things a lot better back then. And also, that snake cage here is decent for that size snake. A 20, because it's not a really active snake. It just sits in there. Even when it was in the giant cage, it didn't really utilize it. If I ever find a bigger one, I will get it. Maybe upgrade it to a 30 long. Tall for this kind of snake is kind of useless. It doesn't climb. And when that other one was on here, the 30 tall, which the stand's made for, you see that? There was like mold all along there. And if I go over here, it might have been condensation from the old cover leaking down, but looks like it was, he tried fixing it with silicone, so I think it was leaking. It's not leaking now, but it might start. I also have to make a cover for this out of plexiglass because a lot of heat is lost from this. Well, if you saw what I was doing there, actually, that's where I keep the bird seed. Trying to roast them out of here because we have all these little worms that hatched from the bird seed because, you know, eggs come in bird seed, and this is like 2 years old, so I'm trying to get rid of it over the winter. Okay, like I was saying, this guy here eats mice. I gave it 2 full-size mice today. They're the frozen ones you buy at any pet store. They have a freezer full of them. And you just put them in warm water to defrost them. And you give them to the snake. I gave it 2 full-size ones. This snake is pretty big now. This is like its adult size. It's not really growing anymore. They max out at about 4 feet, a corn snake. This snake here I've had since I think 2008. It's a pretty old snake, but they can live to be 15 or 20 in captivity. When I first got this one, it was 6 inches long, as skinny as ribbon, and it ate pinkies. Pinkies are newborn mice that you can buy at the pet store frozen.
The mice cost like $2.50 each, the frozen ones. You can buy live ones for 99 cents, but other than a lot of people don't want to feed them that because they think it's cruel for the mouse. Another thing is the mouse can actually bite the snake. One of my father's ones actually bit the eye of the snake. He wasn't feeding it. He got it from somewhere because his property was actually registered as an animal refuge because at one point he had like 50 tanks set up in the basement there because he had all kinds of stuff, salt water, all that stuff, like in the 90s, but he's recently got rid of a lot of that stuff. And actually, you want to know what the best thing is for ick medication? I'm not giving advice on this because I don't personally know how to do it. He used to have like some ratio. He used to put like a drop of formaldehyde in an aquarium for every 20 gallons, something like that. I don't even know. I'm not going to try that. And it did miracles on ick. That tiny little drop in an entire aquarium would kill ick. It would just wipe his stuff out. This is the kind of stuff I use. A lot of people hate that stuff because it leaves the things blue. It'll make the silicone turn blue and it stays blue. I haven't had an ick problem in like 10 years because I got smart after a while. If you buy a new fish, you should keep it in a quarantine tank, like a 5-gallon tank. Just throw it in there for a month. If nothing happens to it, throw it in your big tank. If it develops something, you can treat it in there. Making sure the stuff never gets in there. And this here, I haven't even gotten around to setting this thing up yet. That's a standby air pump. Like, if the power goes out, I'll just simply undo that one and put that one in its place. Because in order to run them both together, like this one would be here on standby, right? You'd have to have both of these with a T connection, and then on each one you'd have to have a one-way switch. So when one of them shuts off, it won't go into the other. You'd have to have, the one-way valves. And I just not motivated enough to do that. I just realized my voice probably sounds way different now because I never plugged this back in to my camera. Yeah, I'm recording with a cell phone now, and this thing makes it so much better because I hear like a high-pitched screech when I use the internal microphone. I don't like that.
I also found a container of popcorn that was like 5 years expired in my father's house, so I just decided to pop it all for the birds. But then I go online and look up that they will eat the kernels. Squirrels and birds like kernels. So I popped it for nothing, but it attracted a bunch of crows that took it away. Yeah, there was actually a lot of food in his house that I took only because they were going to throw it out, and I don't like anything going to waste. Years ago, matter of fact, we used to actually, if we found it, we didn't actually go out looking for dumpsters to dive in, but if we found one that was full of food, we would actually take it because stores legally have to throw it out like a week before the Best Buy, something like that. So it's technically still good, they just can't sell it, so we used to take it. Some of it we'd actually eat, but mostly we'd just dump it out in the yard for the squirrels and birds to eat, just so it doesn't go to waste. But yeah, a lot of towns actually allow it. I actually called a bunch of police stations just to make sure, is that legal going in somebody's dumpster? But yeah, if it's in the public parking lot, it's fine as long as it's not locked or inside an enclosure. But I'm not giving anyone advice on how to do that. I'm just saying I hate that people throw out so much food. It's such a waste. Looked it up online, 40% of all food produced in the United States gets thrown out. And that is a shocking amount of food. But that's something I haven't done in a while. There was one time in a town that the police said we could do it. The manager actually told us to get out of there, but he called the cops on us. The cops showed up. The cops actually yelled at the manager saying all he's trying to do is save food so it doesn't end up in a landfill. So we were able to get that. The next time we went back there, everything was slashed with a box cutter. That manager must have done that. But he got what was coming to him. A few weeks later, a bear scattered everything across the entire dumpster because the smell of the food attracted it. It was absolutely everywhere. That was hilarious. Most of the canned stuff I ate because it was like 1 week past the date. That's nothing for something in a can that already has a 3-year shelf life. But this here, I picked it up because it was going to rain. If his stuff gets rained on, animals won't eat it. I've been through that so many times, dumping cereal outside. When it's waterlogged, it just sits there and rots. So this is why I created my animal feeding station. You could load that thing up with a month worth of food, and it doesn't get rained on. The animals just keep coming back. I mostly started taking dumpster stuff for the animals. Occasionally there's something in there that I think is, well, pretty much most of it is suitable still for eating. Yeah, it's funny how stuff goes. Before I end this video, one hilarious thing was one time actually in a dumpster we found $4,500 worth of chocolate that was 5 months before the date. They threw it out because it's not going to last until the next Christmas, so instead of discounting it, they get more money of profit by getting rid of it, and they can write it off on their taxes.
Obviously, I didn't take all that chocolate, because what am I going to do with a stack of chocolate that would literally fill up a few cars? I couldn't eat it myself, and I don't give that kind of stuff out. You know, I'm not going to give that to people. If I trusted myself, sure. It's unopened. I'm not talking about those nasty supermarket dumpsters like Leak the Sludge. I'm talking about like a convenience store type thing where they don't sell any produce or meat. They don't sell anything fresh. It's all packaged like snacks and stuff. So the dumpster was always fairly clean. It never smelled. It actually smelled good because they usually threw out thousands and thousands of dollars of soap. Like, who cares if your soap is a month past the Best Buy date? It doesn't make any sense to me why certain things get thrown out. The way a store works is they think to themselves, all this stuff that's about to expire, I can discount it and make a quarter of the price, or I can write it off on my taxes, get all the money back, buy brand new stuff, and sell it for full price. They don't give this stuff to shelters. They don't give it to people that need it. They throw it out, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. All it does is just sits in a landfill, creating methane gas and just rotting. It's just an entire waste. That's why you see so many seagulls flying around the dump. 40% of all food ends up there.